Hi there, it's Katie with There's No Business Like, and I'm planning my travel to the Midwest Arts Expo in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I don't know how I'm getting there yet. Am I driving, taking a train, flying into Mitchell International Airport where they have a recombobulation area after TSA? Or perhaps taking one of two ferries from Michigan to Wisconsin and enjoying a beautiful, relaxing float across Lake Michigan? Make sure you stop by booth 511 in the Expo Hall to say hi, record an interview with us, and find out how I got to the Midwest Arts Expo, September 15th through the 18th. No matter how you get there, I'll see you in Milwaukee.
Hey friends, Bryan Zelmer here with you today for There's No Business Like, and we're continuing to highlight some of the best of our 142 episodes. Today, I selected Tara Bailey, our longtime friend from Canada, who is the founder of her own booking agency. I really enjoyed hearing Tara's story. Even though I've known her for a long time, I didn't know a lot of the things she told us about in this interview. And I also really enjoyed learning about the programs in Canada, including the Canada Council for the Arts, and how they support theater for young audiences. Most of all, I loved her advice, including take less crap from people, which is the title of the episode. So with no further ado, let's go back and give another listen to episode 48, Tara Bailey.
Hello and welcome to There's No Business Like, a podcast where friends and industry colleagues explore topics and interview leaders in our industry of professional theatrical touring. Hey everyone, welcome. It's Danielle Van Hook from the Alden and McLean, Virginia, and guess who I'm here with today? Katie.
Hey everyone, Katie Miller with the Midland Center for the Arts in Midland, Michigan.
Josh.
Josh Benson rocking it from Marion, Illinois at the Marion Cultural and Civic Center.
Kevin.
Kevin Maynard from Quad City Arts.
Bryan.
Bryan Zelmer from KU Presents in Kutztown, Pennsylvania.
All right. A full table here today. So today I'm going to be sharing an interview that I did with Tara Bailey. Tara is an agent, advocate, and mentor from Canada. So in honor of Tara's homeland, I'm wondering if you all have been there.
I have been to Canada.
Yes, I've also been to Canada.
I've not been to Canada.
Josh has not been to Canada. I was shaking my head no, but you couldn't see that because this is an audio podcast.
You also didn't shake it very clearly. I didn't know. I just assumed that we were all in a consensus. All right. So I'm curious, for those of you who have traveled to our northern neighbor, did you feel like it was culturally similar to the U.S. or did it feel like foreign to you?
I spent, I think a long weekend in Toronto once when I was a little bit younger, and my parents took us to see Phantom of the Opera. So, Broadway show, pretty good food. We watched curling on TV in the hotel because I was like 10. Yeah. So I don't know that I noticed necessarily any huge differences. But again,
the fact that curling was on TV and it wasn't during the Olympics, right there, you answered your own question.
I suppose that's true. But no, I as a preteen, I didn't notice any major cultural differences, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, besides the presence of Mounties, not that different.
So I asked you all that because Tara and I are going to talk about a little bit about the differences between the U.S. and Canada. Because personally, the times I've been there a few times, it doesn't feel like it's that different of a place. It's obviously a different country. It obviously has a slightly different culture, but it largely feels similar. They also did produce my favorite TV show, which is Schitt's Creek, obviously. But throughout my career, I don't know if this is the same for you all or not, I've heard what I thought was like a tall tale or like a lie by omission that Canada is a better place for artists to create work. But I just never, no one has ever explained to me like why that might be. It's just always sort of been like, I don't know, a fable. Have you guys heard that before?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So I wanted to talk to Tara because she's somebody who works within that Canadian arts economy. And I just wanted to find out like how it's different for her as someone who's supporting artists also running their businesses. We all know that funding is going to play a role in creating artistic work. So I wanted to give you something to think about while you listen. I did some very surface level research and found that in 2021 to 2022, the Canadian Council granted $457.5 million to the arts, and the National Endowment for the Arts in the US granted $201 million. Obviously, there's a difference in population there. Those are different numbers. So think about it. I hope you enjoyed this interview. Cheers.
My name is Tara Bailey. I'm the founder of Bailiwick Booking Agency, and we specialize in youth and family programming. I want to acknowledge that I work and play on the unceded territory of the Anishinaabe people.
Well, thank you, Tara. Thank you so much for sitting down with me today. I'm so excited to get into this conversation. I've loved talking with you over the years. We haven't done a ton of work together, really, but you've just been such an awesome colleague in this field. And I'm so excited to get a chance to really dig into you.
Thank you.
Do you remember the first arts experience or spark that kind of led you on this journey of an arts life? And how did you get where you are from there?
When I was 18 years old, I went and followed the Grateful Dead for a few months on the road. Seeing that level of performance and gathering and community made a really big impact on me. Fast forward to living in Vancouver and eventually putting on little underground parties with my boyfriend, the DJ at the time, really ended up having a long-standing impact.
So it was more of the community and the experience and the vibe of an arts event that really kind of hooked you.
Yeah, exactly.
What other things were you doing around that time?
Oh, I had so many jobs when I was younger. When I left high school, I didn't go to university right away. I wanted to go out and live and experience the world, and I wanted to work. That was primary for me. So I must have had 5 different jobs, and I would always get into management somehow, from music stores to landscaping to making candles. I had a candle making business for many, many years. I think just the variety of experience of work and responsibility and wanting to promote other people, in the sense that I never wanted to be on stage. I always wanted to elevate others.
And then did you eventually go to college?
Yes, I did. I ended up studying performing arts management at Capilano University in Vancouver, where I immediately got a job with the Vancouver Jazz Festival. And then I ended up at a little organization called Art Starts in Schools, which is a not-for-profit, which put artists into schools, and we booked 2,300 shows a year in schools across British Columbia.
Wow.
So I did all the logistics, the tour planning, and the contracting.
And is that similar to what you did for the Jazz Fest as well?
I did a lot of artist logistics and contracts, yes. So a lot of experience in this sort of administration side.
What drew you to that kind of work?
Just the community and being a part of something. In Vancouver, at the time, the Jazz Festival was one of the biggest events of all year, and it was one of the bigger organizations. So, and I ended up working for them for 10 years off and on.
And so how did that go from doing that kind of work to running your own business now?
It's a long, strange trip. I worked for the Jazz Festival for probably about 10 years after studying. I went to university early in my 30s. So I really ended up working for most of my 20s, just being out in the world. First the Jazz Festival, then Art Starts. And then I just felt it was time for a change, and I wanted to move back to Ontario, and started looking for a job, and eventually got a call. And I was actually headhunted at that moment, one of the biggest youth and family agencies in North America, and worked for 6 years, getting to know the conference circuit, getting to know all the major players in the performing arts centers across North America. And I really cut my teeth there. And then I decided it was time to go out and start my own. And it was just the right time and the right place, I suppose, to some extent. Of course, this was 2018. So my first season that I fully booked on my own under Bailiwick Booking Agency was 2019-2020. We all know how that ended. It's also the way I found myself where I currently live. I decided to start a business, sort of move back in with family, and COVID hit. And actually it was good positioning if I think about it now, because I really had a lot of backup with the family.
Hindsight on that, I feel like is nice to have that feeling now that it was ultimately for the better, but I'm sure at the time it felt just like it didn't quite feel that way. And I admire you for sticking in there.
Hindsight is always 20/20, isn't it? So, I mean, did I know I would end up in the middle of nowhere? No. But am I happy that I did? Yes. And honestly, it's put me in a great position to run this business because I am a one-woman show for the most part. I have a little bit of support, but ultimately it all comes down to me.
So about how far into that first season did you get before all the cancellations from the pandemic came in?
Well, we started strong, actually. It was one of my best years. 2019, the fall, we started touring. I mean, I think we had about 5 or 6 tours out during that year. And obviously everybody got shut down in March.
Right.
So we were, I would say, 3/4 through the season before we were really, we had our hands tied. I'm grateful for that because a lot of what I did happened earlier in the season.
Yeah. Did you find that a lot of those dates that had gotten canceled in March 2020 and beyond got rescheduled?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In fact, I'm still working on that. It is incredible how long it's taken. We were planning on being in the Pacific Northwest in April of 2020. And so I have a tour going out next season, 2024, that's going to make up those dates finally.
Wow.
So that's 4 years later.
Yeah.
This is a long game. What we do is a very long game. There's times where I have worked for 7 years to book something. It's important that we realize that everything's rooted in our relationships and the intent.
Do you think it was the relationship with those presenters and those organizations that sort of kept their commitment? Or do you think that it was a little bit more of like a transactional commitment?
Oh, I mean, I think it's definitely both. I think when you have a product that people are dedicated to or emotionally invested in, there's a very easy way to make that transactional.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about your business and your agency?
So Bailiwick Booking Agency now it is 5 years old this year. Actually, it'll be on this is my 5th anniversary of starting this company.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Very much dedicated to theater for young audiences. In Canada, it is much more common to have this as a part of the infrastructure of performing arts centers in the sense that most venues are dedicated to doing some family programming. It's more of an anomaly for a venue not to do that. That's something else to be considered. Canada has a very strong tie with theater for young audiences. We have a lot of social justice work that comes from the West Coast. And then we have a lot of really interesting work that comes out of Quebec because we have funding. So Canada has something called Canada Council for the Arts. And that is an organization dedicated to funding both artists and presenters and even agents to bring this work to the forefront. We also have provincial funding. And this is where Quebec shines because their dedication to arts and culture is very strong. So that's why we see a lot of work coming out of Quebec for young audiences. It's a part of their daily life and it's very much highly regarded. So yes, I work across Canada. It's very different the way that they work here in Canada in the sense of the States. There's more block booking going on here. There's more people working together from the presenter side to get things. It's because it's harder for us. Our dollar is worth a little bit less. So to bring in some of the international acts that we want to, we need more people invested to make it worthwhile for artists to come here. We're currently creating a new sort of block booking system across Canada that is presenter driven, that is, I believe, cloud-based. So if a presenter wants to hire you or your company, they sort of post it in this presenter world and other people can kind of join onto the tour. And what's really interesting is the booking in numbers in the sense that we may have one person interested, but once we get 5 presenters on board, they can actually bring down the price a little bit too, right? Because they say, okay, we're coming to you as a 5-person block. We don't have conflicts between those presenters when they work together, right? They all know that they're 100 miles away or whatever it is. So they don't have those issues. So when they come to us and they bring us a really big offer, it's almost impossible to say no because, you've got 2 weeks of booking.
And are you working to kind of coordinate the artists and the presenters sort of finding that match and helping each other?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important to remember that we're still agents. Like this is not going to take the place of what we do. We still rely on that relationship between agent and presenter. So it really still has to come down to the relationships that I still have with the various presenters.
Why don't you talk about the size of your roster and generally what you do as an agent?
So I have what I would like to call my flagship artist, Lightwire Theater, out of New Orleans. And I've been working with them for 12 years now. I'd say about 80% of my business is with Lightwire Theater.
Wow.
In addition to that, I have a number of Canadian companies that I promote into the US, such as Access Theater Company, who has been performing theater for young audiences for 30 plus years. It's one of the oldest companies in Canada. I have a number of smaller artists that try and focus more regionally. Some of my artists really don't leave Ontario, where I'm based, or don't go very far, or don't leave Canada. A number of artists don't leave Canada. It's so complicated for us to try and obtain work visas in the US that it's almost a deterrent for many companies. If a Canadian company wants to go to the US, it's going to cost us at least $5,000 just to obtain a working visa. So that tour has to be pretty viable, right? It has to be pretty robust in order for us to walk through the border and lose $5,000 right away. But if an American wants to come to Canada, you just walk in. We might tax you 15%, but that's about it. The roster's always changing. I'm always looking for new, interesting things. How I find the roster is always variable. Sometimes social media will lead me to a new artist, and then I need to go see the show, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's one of the things that I try and stipulate in my own business practice is go and see the show. You're not really valuable as an agent if you're not in the seats in the theater, so that you have the experience that you're trying to either sell or, provide for others. I think the idea that you have to have been an audience member before you start selling something is imperative, and you really don't see the value. And there's nothing like live theater. I mean, you can watch a video all day, as you know, but once you're in that seat and the lights go off, the magic happens. And I'm not a good agent unless I have that experience. And I think it's really important to be authentic and truthful. And I think that that's one of the reasons why I have nice relationships with people like yourself, is that we're not going to misrepresent anything.
Right. And you can give like your experience seeing a performance, and, and you can fully stand behind something. And that's, I'm sure that that's really valuable for you.
It's imperative. If you don't believe in what you're doing, why are you doing this? I mean, essentially, and I know that you and I have some similar tastes, so it's really easy to be authentic with you.
Well, and I really appreciate, especially in the youth and family world, the agents and the work that you all do to curate your rosters and the relationships, because we're kind of a smaller group, to really kind of know each other and to know each other's tastes, so that, if there is a big tour and, I'm not able to go to one of their shows, or they're not able to do the showcasing, because that's a huge investment, especially if it's a lot of people and a lot of set. A lot of times it's logistically impossible, that we are able to work a little bit more on a relationship kind of basis, not completely, but like if I know that I've seen something from your roster, I kind of have an idea of what it is that you look for. And then I can listen to you explain something else to me, and I can watch that video, and I can take the whole experience of understanding what this artist is based on other ways that I know you. And to me, that's really valuable, when so much of the tours that we do in youth and family are huge, set wise and people and a lot of the really high quality stuff that we all are trying to kind of get across the country. It is hard to showcase. So, having those relationships is just, I think it's super imperative.
I think we're a unique bunch too. I think the Theater for Young Audiences agent collective is a real thing. There's been many of us that have been meeting once a month, once every 2 months throughout the pandemic. And that just goes back to say, thank you to TYA USA, who in the face of the pandemic decided to gather all of us together in our unique infinity groups, presenters, producing houses, agents, and that made us all closer. And it was such a godsend in the sense that we had that sense of community right away. I mean, we could get on the phone or on the Zoom with all of our other fellow agents in theater for young audiences. And, we're all going through the exact same thing. And that was really invaluable. And we still meet to this day, as I'm sure you do.
Yeah, Katie and I met through that group, and yeah, we still meet with them. We still talk with them, and both of us have gotten, like you, so much value. It was really vital then, and it's become so joyful now.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm really glad to hear that, because it helps strengthen all of our commitments. And because we are kind of like a small group off to the side of this bigger performing arts center, booking ecology, it's important that we're not just colleagues, but friends as well.
Yeah. And I kind of wanted to go back to something that you said earlier that was kind of surprising and interesting to me about a lot of the performing arts centers across Canada that have family programming as a part of their overall programming mission and goals. And, when I think of Canada, I think it's kind of the same. I don't necessarily think that it's this a different culture really, but kind of bringing that difference to the forefront and knowing that you kind of work across Canada, but then you also work between Canada and the US. Do you have any idea why there is a little bit more of an investment in TYA theater and performing arts in Canada than in the US?
I'm sure it just comes back to funding, to be quite honest, with the Canada Council for the Arts.
We've been friends for a while, talk on and off about different things in the industry. And understanding the differences between Canada and the US has always been something that's like I really don't think that there are that many differences. But then the more we get to talking, I'm like, oh, hey, there is. You've sort of talked a little bit about the Canadian Arts Council and the work that they do. And I don't want to get too into the tax code because neither of us do that. We're not experts in any way. No. But I am curious as like an end user of that tax system and the Canada Council, like how do those programs benefit you and then the artists that you represent?
Right. So as an artist, you can apply for funding to conceptualize and create a show. And so from the very basic structure, from the very beginning of an idea, you can apply with a conceptual idea, nothing created, to the Canada Council, and you can get funding to create the work. So that creates a lot more work than just somebody having an idea. They have the infrastructure and the backup of maybe 20, maybe 50 grand of a grant for the work to be created. I also sometimes get funding to attend the various conferences across Canada and the US. And the reason that they fund me for that is because I'm promoting Canadian work to external markets. And when I get a tour like Tweet, who's, touring down to Charleston and a number of other places, I'm doing the job that they want me to do that funds that kind of work.
Yeah. So that national system of funding, it's interesting to me because we have it in a way, the NEA has a large budget. It gets sort of re-granted a lot to states and to service organizations. And then there are grants directly from the NEA. But I mean, it's a real difference. And I do think that's important for younger artists to consider where they are going to go or where they're going to start out, of those basic infrastructure things and what is possible in different places.
Yeah, I think it's really important to share as much information as possible with as many people as possible. My recent sort of take on the way that this business works and how to sort of elevate others is to do the opposite of gatekeeping. If I have a friend in this business that is in a certain area and I think that somebody should meet them, I will walk a presenter over to their booth. I'm constantly trying to connect people. I think we all need to sort of get on board with doing sort of the opposite of gatekeeping and sharing as much information and elevating others as much as possible. You can do it by mentoring. You can, there's a lot of organic ways you can do it. This is one of the reasons why Napama was so great when they had the retreats. We would go, and it was one of the first places I met our mutual friend, Christine Cox, was at one of these retreats. And I went to learn, to be mentored. And at the same time I was learning and being mentored, I was actually mentoring as well, and sharing as much information. And I think that that's an important way of looking at this business because I think it just makes you stronger and hopefully it benefits you in some way.
Just because you lift somebody else up doesn't mean that you lose.
I think a lot of people, I think another generation was very competitive. And I think, we're now trying to be more cooperative.
We're not all ever going to do the work the same way.
No.
But you've opened my eyes to a lot of different things about artist touring. And I think that, I appreciate that. And I hope that I've done some of the same things for you as well. And, it's okay. It's okay to work however you want to work.
Well, I have to say thank you because you came at me with some ideas a few years ago that were really, unique. And I hadn't run into that idea of creating a safe space for an artist to workshop their new work. And because you maybe didn't have a huge budget, you were offering different things to this artist. And I thought it was really a unique situation. And I'd like to see more of that.
So yeah, we kind of talked about a smaller kind of commission structure that would give some space to finish a work. And, I'm in a really lucky position where we're in a community center. So we kind of have additional space and maybe some more internal resources that a lot of people don't have. But we're not a commissioning place. That's not a part of our model, or at least right now, really strongly. And so, yeah, we just did some brainstorming about is there a way that we don't cancel? Yeah. And when we really realized we weren't going to do that, the artist was getting another opportunity.
A Broadway opportunity.
Yeah. If there was somebody that was losing in that, it was you. And I remember you saying, I just want to do what's right for the artist. And it's not right now, but it will be one day. And, we're going to keep this going. We're all going to stay in touch. And I want what's best for him in his career. Just love you for that.
And here it is again, the gatekeeping. I will never stand between an artist and another opportunity just because I think I have, a contract or a commitment. I have artists that work with other agents. And I'm okay with that because it means the artist gets the work. And my relationship with them is so important that I need to keep them happy. I want everybody to be fulfilled and feel like they have, their own autonomy.
And then I also just wanted to kind of touch back on another thing that you said earlier. You started out getting mentored at NAPAMA, but now you're a board member. And you're a board member at other organizations throughout our industry. And I'm wondering why that's something that's important to you.
I love to help. So, and that kind of just goes to, being an agent as well. It's just facilitating, helping. I am currently on the board of NAPAMA. I was voted onto the board in January of 2020. And I recently joined the board of Arts Northwest, which is a small conference out in the Pacific Northwest happening in Beaverton this year. That's important in a number of different ways because I believe that they're going to start doing more of this family programming. So I'm very much invested in that area, that neck of the woods, because I believe it's a place that I can grow and contribute to. And then I'm also a founding member of ASPA, which is the Agencies des Arts, Performing Arts Agencies, which is basically like NAPAMA's sister organization for Canada. And we had to create that, although NAPAMA is North American, we had to create sort of a Canadian chapter that is French and English that will speak to the Canada Council. Because as much as NAPAMA has Canadian members, and I am, one of many, Canada Council for the Arts does not want to speak to an organization based in the US on behalf of the agents. We needed a Canadian-based organization to have the conversations with the Canada Council for the Arts about funding. That kind of work, is advocacy, helping to create understanding and knowledge. And I had a showcase last year with Lightwire Theatre. This year, Access Theatre is going to showcase with Somebody Loves You, Mr. Hatch. We're going to build awareness of good, high-quality theatre for young audiences in markets that maybe don't always see high quality. In addition, so it's about advocacy. It's about the work that we do with youth and family programming. And, in addition, like I said, I love to help. I'm currently a member of the showcase committee at the new conference Max. And so I've been helping put together sort of the youth and family symposium happening there, which is going to consist of a 90-minute professional development session with a number of speakers. And then we're going to go into a 1-hour showcase roughly with 5 showcasing artists and 4 agents or artists pitching in between the showcases as they sort of turn over. That's been really an important work to do because Max decided early in their conception that they wanted to dedicate some time to TYA after we lost IPE, which is the International Performing Arts for Youth Conference that many of us went to for many, many years. In addition to that, I'm also on the conference committee for Western Arts Alliance because, again, the West has a special place in my heart and I want to continue to grow there.
Yeah. So in a lot of ways, being on those committees like allows you to advocate for your values of TYA in performance. And, I know in being on a lot of those, sometimes you're really kind of doing a lot more mentoring and you're doing a lot of indirect things that maybe don't benefit you. But, having a seat at the table and using that seat, I think really speaks to the relationship aspect of what we're doing in the community.
Yeah, I do believe we have a community and I do believe it's an important one. And we're trying to go in and change young minds and open up experiences for the young audiences. Yeah, It's I think it's super important work.
I do too. Yeah, I love it. What I really love too is seeing families come together and having this like shared experience that is valuable for the adults and the grandparents, as well as for the younger children. And I think that's, why we like lean towards things that we feel do have that higher quality, whatever that means. For me, a lot of times it means being for children, but being also adult friendly as well.
Very much so.
So Tara, my dear friend Bryan has a time machine that we use on this podcast to go back so that you can give your younger self some advice. And I would love to take Tara back to a point where you're sort of leaving college and going into an arts career. And I'd love to know what advice you would give that person who's followed the Grateful Dead, which I need to talk to you again about that because that was new information to me. What advice do you have for her as she's gathering her life experience and putting that really into this career?
I would say I would probably go back and tell myself to trust myself a little bit more. Take a little less crap from people, but mostly trust yourself. I think we all have self-doubt. And I think if we give a little less attention to that and just kind of go with our gut, I might have gotten here sooner. I don't know. It's an interesting idea. I've thought a lot about this because I listen to your podcast every week and I hear you ask everybody this question and I think about it and people's answers are always quite surprising, but essentially there's some sort of unity here that people sort of come to, which is, yeah, trust yourself.
And what do you like most about the industry right now?
Always the people. It's always the people. Like I told you, my favorite part is coming together and gathering at our conferences. I know it's hard for some people, but that's my absolute favorite part is being with my colleagues and, like I said, friends.
Well, thank you so much for talking with us today. I'm really looking forward to seeing you. I think we'll both be at Max this coming year. Yeah. And so I'm really looking forward to being able to catch up, taking in all that work that you've been doing, advocating for the TYA symposium and putting that together. I'm very appreciative of that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I look forward to it. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you too, Danielle. Cheers.
Oh, Danielle, I loved this conversation that you had with Tara. Thank you so much for sitting down with her. I loved hearing about Tara's career, and I especially loved how much you really dug into the business side of what she does as an agent and the differences between Canada and the United States. When I went to my very first Arts Midwest back in 2017, I sat in on a block booking discussion, and that was kind of my first foray into that territory. And back then, we were having discussions about the differences in block booking between Canada and the US. So I loved hearing more about how they're handling that from a presenter side, as well as, kind of from the agent side, how it's not necessarily going to replace what agents do, but it brings a different element to it, and it makes it easier, frankly, to block book in the way that they are being a lot more collaborative. We constantly are having conversations in the US about, well, we should block book and we should do this and we should do that. And we can never quite get over the hump, it seems. And so I really loved hearing more about that and seeing kind of how that has changed and grown in the last 6-7 years.
Yeah, I have to admit, actually, in Pennsylvania Presenters, we had a big discussion about block booking because that's how our consortium started. And it used to be so strong. And then eventually over the years went away. And now it's almost never heard of, but people are still interested in it. And I don't remember how somebody informed me, but they told me about this system in Canada. And they connected me with Judy Harquail from Ontario Presenters. And I actually, Judy was gracious enough to have a meeting with me and went through and talked about their system. And because of the way that Canada's helping fund things like that, and because of several different things with their system, it was something that we would not be able to do here. It would be cost prohibitive for an organization, at least like Pennsylvania Presenters, without some kind of significant support, because it's very robust. Like their system, as Judy was explaining it to me, I mean, she went into details about how it works, and it's incredible. But she also explained to me how a lot of their venues are so remote from one another, and they're in places that a tour, even if they offered them like extra money, would not come to them because it just doesn't make financial sense for a tour to go all the way up out of that way. So this block booking, it just helps bring tours up through Canada and parts of Canada that would not have them. So it was just, incredible to learn about. And I just wish that we were able to have something like that too.
When Tara described that as an agent, she can get funding to attend a conference and sell a show, that an artist also got funding to develop, or, maybe even in other ways through the Canada Council. And, in the US, we're so used to, well, if, you are funding something through, say, like a state grant, but it's like actually re-granted through the NEA, that you can't match it if there's a match required with like local funds that ultimately were funneled through the NEA. And it's just such a fundamentally different way of thinking about funding and what's appropriate or acceptable and what's not. Like it's so interesting.
Tara made a comment, to the extent that like companies are given the infrastructure to develop new work kind of more freely, it seems like, than in the US. And I think that speaks to cultural differences in how Canada, the performing arts industry, takes theater for young audiences and theater for families more seriously than we do.
Yeah, Tara did really kind of highlight some big differences on that cultural aspect between the U.S. and Canada, just like Katie said, but also just talking about just the financials of all of that. It seems astounding to me that a U.S.-based artist can go into Canada for no money and get paid. But then just to get into the country, they have to pay like $5,000 in a visa. And I think the visa conversation itself is, a much wider, much broader conversation that I think we have time for, because that has changed significantly in the past 3 years.
And that $5,000 is a generic
yes
number, and it based on the number of cast members, production crew members, whatever you have, that number grows and grows.
Exactly. And so and it's becoming harder to get those visas, and it's taking more time. And so just that whole aspect was really surprising to learn that, as long as you're a US based artist, like you can walk right in. Just crazy.
That kind of begs a question about US policy and how within US policy, there isn't a value on international art and how it could affect our cultural atmosphere. And instead there's a paywall for international art to get to people in the US. And so there's actually a restriction from our government for the access to international art and international acts.
Yeah, at certain times in our history, we have actually used art and culture as a way to build bridges to other countries and essentially smooth over geopolitical conflicts. So it's, to your point, Josh, I think that's super interesting that in our culture, we value diversity. We are this melting pot. We talk about those things all the time. Like there is a restriction on what sort of art and culture can make its way here from other countries. That's something very interesting to think about.
Danielle, at the beginning of this episode, you talked about the amount that the Canadian government spends versus what the United States government spends.
Yeah. Did you do any math on that?
I did. My nerdy brain couldn't take it. So I converted the Canadian dollars into US dollars, and I looked at both of the populations and divided those figures and found, at least using the numbers that you mentioned, the US spends about 60 cents per person per capita on the arts, and Canada spends about $8.85 per capita. So that's a huge difference.
That is astounding. And for, our listeners obviously couldn't see you do that. Bryan did the conversions all in his head. No calculator, didn't have to look up the rate, just
that is untrue. I used Excel actually.
Okay. All right.
He's a real mathlete.
Again, I just think that speaks to the value that we put on arts and culture as a culture, and the investment that we want to make. Like we talk about in this industry as budget as moral document, and where you spend your money is a reflection of your values. And so what does that say about our two sister countries, that one is investing that much more into artists and venues and the people that are making those things go, like Tara, the agents, than we are here in the US?
Can we just talk about how awesome Tara is just as a person? And I was actually inspired by how positive she was with the situation by opening a brand new business and the pandemic hits. And yet, Danielle's like starting to feel bad for her. And then she's like, no, it was actually really a great year for me. And like, it was just really cool to hear. And I think shows Tara's personality and why we all know and love her.
So one of the things that Tara said that I really loved was, as an agent, you can't really sell a show until you've been in the room and seen the show in person. It's a completely different experience than seeing a video of a production. And to be able to really sell a production and be able to tell someone about a production, you have to be able to tell them about the experience of the production. And that was just a little drop of genius that she just threw down during this interview that I really loved.
And I think that not only applies to agents, but it applies to us as presenters as well. If we haven't had the opportunity to feel what that performance is like, how are we supposed to sell it to our audiences or talk to funders or donors about, the piece of art that we want to present? So it's one thing I took away from this interview and taken away from what other guests have said is that idea of like really needing to see the work. So I've worked really hard, and whenever I'm talking to agents and artists now, I'm like, where are you going to be close to me so I can come see you, right? Whether we're going to do business this season or not, like I want to come see your work. I think it's incredibly valuable for an agent like Tara and people like us presenters to be in the room so we know what it feels like.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I think the best thing about listening to this interview with Tara is that in about the first 2 minutes, you can completely understand like what I love about Tara, and the fact that, I didn't expect her answers to be like, oh, I fell in love with the arts because I followed the Grateful Dead around and because I like to throw big parties.
I want to know more about the underground parties too, Kevin.
Yes, I was like, I love that, because most people have that, I don't want to say standard answer, but like, oh, I had this experience and this led me to this. But like, she's like, no, I saw the Grateful Dead and I followed the Grateful Dead, and and it went on from there. I was like, that's amazing.
Well, and she wanted to take her 20s and just live and work.
Yeah.
And that's just, we have this like very revolutionary concept of the gap year now, right? Of like 1 year to sort of like live and do some working and get some like non-teenage experience before going to college. But, sometimes you know who you are, and like, it's an awesome idea.
So I will have lots of questions for the next time I see Tara about this. So
in listening to this, Danielle, I felt like a little bit of a kindred spirit with Tara, because she said that she's a helper. And when you were talking about all of the different committees she sits on and boards she sits on, I just related to that so much because I do a lot of that as well, serve on a lot of committees and boards and that sort of thing. So I just felt Tara's passion for showing up in spaces that she feels passionate about. And it doesn't come, I think, from like a self-serving place, but you could really tell her passion for developing youth and family programming in the Northwest, right? That's an area that she sees as not being served right now. And as you said, like she can bring her voice and her values to the table. And I really, truly feel like she is one of those people that is going to put in so much, and that is going to return to her in spades, right? In terms of relationships and being able to better serve her artists and getting a better sense of what is going on industry wide. So she didn't say as much, but I think it's a great example to set and a great piece of advice that like you only get out of something what you put in, and showing up and being present and sharing your time and talent and energy like that is only going to help you in your career and is only going to make our industry better.
Kitty, thanks so much for summarizing all of the reasons that I just love Tara. And I learned a lot about her as somebody who's working to change theater for young audiences across borders. And I do want to wrap up this conversation to just say sort of like I think what we've been thinking in this conversation, in that funding and, dividing a very large high level number per capita is nuanced. And there are a lot of different factors that affect funding. There's a lot more private and corporate investment in the arts in the US than there is in Canada and abroad. So while there's like very disparate numbers, it's not like those are the only arts funding that's available. And so that's like a big part of this nuanced conversation. But it is kind of just a way in on how do things operate on an individual kind of level. And hopefully we'll have some more conversations about funding because we need it. So thanks, friends. Bye. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening to There's No Business Like. Our producers and hosts are Bryan Zelmer, Josh Benson, Kevin Maynard, Katie Miller, and me, Danielle Van Hook. Views expressed in this podcast are ours alone and are not reflective of the organizations we are a part of. Keep up with us at nobusinesslike.com. There you'll find links to all of our episodes and socials. If you like this podcast, give us a like, a follow, a review, or our favorite, a 5-star rating. Oh wait, what was that site? I got it, don't worry. It is nobusinesslike.com. Do I sound out bus-I-ness every time I type it? Yep, sure do. Stay in touch, my friends.
But I can't speak for each of you, so I'll let you do that.
One of the things that she said, unless you want to go, Kevin, sorry.
No, go ahead.
We're all so freaking polite. Damn it, Canada, you're rubbing off on us. We used to just cut each other off and say.
One of the things that Tara said that I really loved was...
Sorry.
Sorry. I love when she says sorry. I really do. I wish she would say it all the time.
She does. But not in the interview.
No.
Fucking love her.
I do too.